Hi, everyone. Bob Dietrich here with the ADHD Toolbox Part 2. And we're here with Laura Poirier. And she is the ADHD Mama online. If you have seen her, you'd know that she has a large Facebook following. And she's been doing this for quite some time. So, Laura, welcome to to our show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it should be your show because you've got so many videos online. I said your show. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been doing this? How'd you get started? Let's go. Let's start with how long you've been working with parents and teachers, etc., on ADHD.
I've been working with parents, teachers about ADHD for about 2 years, 2.5 years almost at this point. So not a very long time, but I have known I've had ADHD since grade 6, and that was a long time ago.
Yeah, for me too. So you've got 23,000 followers on your Facebook page. 23,000 and growing. Tell us what's happening, because you must be doing something right. You have a ton of people that listen to what you say. Tell us first, how did you get started? How did this grow to the 23,000 followers that you have? And then, we'll go from there.
All right. The ADHD Mama started because of series of different events happened in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
I was running a company at the time that has nothing to do with ADHD, and unfortunately, it collapsed. It stopped working. It went bankrupt, and that was quite upsetting. And at the same time, people started asking me more and more questions about ADHD, other adults, and also our youngest daughter was showing signs of being just like her mother, having ADHD also. So a whole series of some negative, some positive events all came together, and I needed a place to put all of my energy into, all my creative energy. Because of my frustration from my company, I needed something to distract myself. But at the same time, things happened. I had my daughters in swimming lessons. It was a private lesson because I wanted my youngest to actually get something from the class. Up to this point, swimming lessons have been a complete bust. And the teacher had a completely different body language and tone of voice talking to my two girls. Now, my oldest is neurotypical, and my youngest is showing signs of having ADHD. She was only 3 at the time. And the teacher would go, "Great job, fantastic," to my oldest, and then turn to my youngest, "Your turn." And I'm sitting in the stands losing my mind, and my husband's, "Lara, it's okay." He's French, that's why the accent. "So it's okay, Laura, no problem." And I'm losing my mind. I was a swimming instructor for a very long period of time. I know what it should sound like, and that was not it. So instead of getting angry at this one person, I made a video. And it was the first video where I did different characters. So I play the child, the swimming instructor, and there's even a doll. And it goes through a scenario just like what I was watching with my daughters in swimming lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And it took off. It actually went, in my mind, viral. First, it had 1,000 views, and then 10,000, and then 2 years later, it's over 100,000. It's quite exciting.
That's awesome.
And no one I've ever known has ever achieved this. And a lot of my friends kept saying, "Well, Laura, maybe you should try to make another video." That helped me understand more about this condition. So video by video, I started making more and more videos. And I did take a course online called the Viral Academy. And that's what really helped me go from just 300 followers jumping up to 3,000, 10,000, and then beyond at this point.
Right. That's fantastic. And so, so it sounds like you got started in this because you were frustrated with how other people were treating your child. Was she 5 now?
She's 6 now.
6 now. And has she been diagnosed with ADHD, or?
We're still in the process. It's harder to diagnose with inattentive ADHD, and that's what she's showing signs of. Actually, we just received the last piece of paperwork. We need to go back to the doctor to do the next step.
Got it. Okay, good. And so why the passion for getting 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 involved the way you did?
Well, I grew up having ADHD
Hmm.
and no one understood.
Hmm.
Now, I actually truly thought I was the only adult female ever, ever. There was no others. Growing up, there was a couple males in school, and then as an adult, I didn't know anyone else who had ADHD. I didn't meet another person until I was 29 years old.
Wow.
29. So from grade 6 till my 30s nearly, I was alone in the world and quite frustrated.
Hmm.
And then when I started figuring out my daughter looked like she was going to have this too, I chanted to myself, one of me, one of me, because there was no us. It was just me alone in the world, and now there was her. I don't want people to ever feel like they're alone with their ADHD. And I saw an opportunity to talk to others and share some of the knowledge that I've gained over all these years of knowing I have ADHD. I find most women my age are being diagnosed now because of their children, not because of them being diagnosed in the 90s or 80s.
Hmm.
So there's this shift where people are getting diagnosed and they don't have the information. Well, I'm now an adult. I'm watching this happen all over again, and I'm able to explain things from an ADHDer's point of view, which hopefully helps.
Now, why do you think it was that you didn't find anybody until you were 29 years old that had ADHD as an adult?
Well, growing up myself, it came from this mentality: you can't tell other people. There's something wrong with you.
Right.
Don't tell anyone. Keep it a secret. Keep it quiet. I love my parents. They did a wonderful job. I'm not making fun of them. I'm not dissing them. But that's exactly how they treated this. None of my family members knew I had this. Aunts and uncles, cousins. And it turns out that's actually quite detrimental
Hmm.
because you look normal,
Hmm.
but you don't always act the way people expect you to.
Hmm.
And there's this shift, there's this mentality when someone looks normal and they don't act normal, people treat them poorly. And that happened to me a lot in my life. And I found it natural for me to start telling people, oh no, like I have ADHD. There's a reason why I act this way.
Hmm.
And so there's that was the 80s, 90s, and 2000s type mentality. Don't tell people. Well, boy, do I tell people I have ADHD now.
Yeah.
I even wear a sweatshirt that says ADHD awesome. And someone
Mhm.
actually came up to me and they're like, that's a cool sweatshirt last night.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I would say that it's still, there's still stigma around it, right?
Yes.
And that's part of the purpose of this second part of the ADHD toolbox is to start to change the narrative, start to dissolve the stigma, and start to reframe this disorder into something that is actually something that, if when you embrace it, there's an awesomeness on
There
this.
is definitely an awesome side to it.
Yeah. And so in your work over the last couple of years in working with parents or talking with parents and doing your videos and just observing, what have you noticed is different about ADHD, people with ADHD, the awesome side of it, once you overcome and you manage it, what is on the other side of that?
A person that just has some of the most truly innocent creativity and curiosity.
Hmm.
Um, it's a wonderful thing to have ADHD when it's treated and managed and have a support system of people who understand that there are no limits, that they can just think freely and come up with solutions that others can't. And I've heard this time and time again about other psychologists mentioning about the creativity, but it really is true. And I've experienced that in my own life. At my adult job, not just the ADHD mama, I do have a full-time job. Coworkers know that I can come up with ideas and things they've never thought of. So when they have a problem, they'll bring it to me. Or when they need something for marketing, they'll ask me. I'm working on a hashtag campaign.
Right.
And in order to do this, that they have to understand how I work, because for the hashtag campaign, the marketing director sat down at my desk at my computer. I laid down on my floor with my feet in the air with a bouncy ball, throwing it at the ceiling, catching it, throwing it. And that's how my brain was able to think. I had to distract my body physically in order to allow the creativity just to flow. But she was already told, like I told her I have ADHD. And in order to get this answer out of my brain, I need to do this. She didn't even blink an eye. And it felt so good to have someone in the workforce understand that this is not a terrible thing. This is a blessing, and it can work out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned managing ADHD. What do you do to manage, and what have you seen that is effective in ways to manage so you can get to that other side of ADHD? All right.
I use untraditional medication
Okay.
compared to other people. In the past, I have used Ritalin, Adderall, Strattera. I've tried it all, and I have very good success with ADHD medication. Unfortunately, due to a health problem, I can't take a stimulant anymore. So when I was in my 30s, cannabis was legalized in Canada. And I had heard for many years that it has helped other people with their ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, hey, it's legal. Let's give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
The night I tried it, I burst into tears. I'm not going to cry. I burst into tears because I realized I wasn't stupid, that my brain just wasn't talking to itself properly. I couldn't do math in my head before. I have a math learning disability, and that has held me back in careers, in my choices of careers.
Mm-hmm.
And I have always felt very stupid. And I really love playing a game called cribbage with my husband. And for 8 years of our marriage, he used to count my cards for me, and we would still play. He's so sweet to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried cannabis, and we played crib, because that's what you do. And I could do the math in my head. Now, it only solves one of my 2 learning disabilities. I can't explain why. I have talked to the Dean of Science here at our local university to try to get a study, because this was so fascinating to me. Why was this working better than any other medication I've ever taken?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I need to explain, I do not smoke cannabis. I take a pill from a licensed medical provider.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very low dose, and I take it at night. And so I find it helps for 24 hours. I'm not stoned at work. I'm not stoned while driving. And quite frankly, I'm not stoned because this is a microdose.
And
And what?
is it CBD, or is it THC, or is it a mixture?
Both.
Both. Mm-hmm.
I find the 1-to-1 ratio of both in a small dose works the best. And for about 2 years, I tested every single product I could possibly find when it came to cannabis to find what worked and what didn't. And I ranked the products, and then I finally found the one that works the best for me.
Wow. And thank you for saying that, because we've had a lot of people on our program over 30, reaching 40, and by the time we're done, over 50, and nobody's talked about cannabis to this point, and there's a lot there, and I think the reason why people shy away from it is because the testing is not there yet, right?
You're right.
And the testing and the creation of it, when you're manufacturing it, the labeling is not correct. There's not the kind of regulation around it. Make sure that the doses are correct and things like that. So it can be, from what I understand, it can be dangerous. Dangerous, maybe a harsh word, but it can be.
It is a harsh word.
You may be taking
trial and error.
Yeah, that is not. The correct dosage that it might say on the packaging.
Right now, there's no studies on this, and there's not enough. The studies that have been done have had 30 participants, not 3,000. And all we have is testimonials. Now, for a lot of people that follow my page, they know that I use this product, and I talk about CBD. For those that, if you live in a place where CBD is legal, consider giving it a try. Now, again, for the cannabis with the THC, I do not encourage any children to take this. Take this after the age of 25. You need your brain to fully develop, and they do have studies on how it's detrimental to the development of the brain. But after that, there is no detrimental effect to the brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So great. So for you, you've been able to manage it through this method. Other people can manage it through other methods. It sounds like you probably wouldn't have tried this if the other medications worked and worked
You're right.
for your health, right? So so each parent has to make that decision, and I have
Absolutely.
seen case studies of huge transformations happening from this. So everybody will have to make their own. But the point of our conversation today is that there is a brilliance on the other side when you manage it, right? And we talked
Yes.
about your managing it. I'd like to move to your website, and which is your Facebook page, right? Talk a
Yes.
little bit about that. Again, over 23,000 followers on the ADHD Mama on Facebook.
I didn't know it was up to 23, by the way, so thank you.
Oh,
That's exciting.
you're welcome. So I want to ask you, what are the biggest takeaways that you've had, the biggest things that you've learned, the aha moments that you've had in developing this tribe that you have online, and these followers that just love your stuff?
The first and biggest one is the fact that people who have ADHD are not doing the things that annoy you on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
No one chooses to have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
It's often genetic,
Right.
and it can be very challenging, but there are rewards. And when there's a shift in the mindset to go from you're doing that on purpose to,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you're struggling, here, I can help you. It really changes the whole dynamic of how the person can feel about themselves when they have ADHD, and also how they can interact with the world even changes, and the family interacts with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's amazing. And thank you for saying that, because at BrainWorx we work with a lot of children as well, and what we've noticed is that these children have no control. Right? They cannot control their situation. They cannot control their ADHD. If they have to stand, sometimes they have to stand and they have to rock and they have to move in order to hear. Right? Just like you were talking about with the ball, throwing it at the ceiling. Like that's how your brain works. Some kids, because of the way they're developed. They have to do that. They have to be able to rock. They have to be able to stand. They have to be able to move in order to listen. And it's not that they're not listening. Exactly.
I have a desk full of toys because of this reason. It's not anyone's fault that it's not my fault that I can't not fiddle with things.
Right.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Right. And so part of the embracing of ADHD, right, is embracing the fact that, hey, it may not look like they're paying attention, but sometimes in fact, maybe all the time, they have to be moving or look like they're not paying attention in order to pay attention.
I'm guilty of this as a teacher.
Yeah.
So I teach adults in my adult life, and I had a student who was younger than most of my students, and he's playing on his phone and not looking up at all with one earphone in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, come on, buddy, pay attention. And then every so often I'd ask a question, and he doesn't even look at me, and he got the answer completely right. And then when we get to our scenario portion of the class, he does better than every other adult who is sitting there paying attention. It helped me to also realize, even though I do the same thing, that it's not how the person looks and what they're doing. It's use tools to find out how much did they retain of the information, or how can they use that information. It was humbling, to be honest.
And it's interesting, you see these like fidget spinners out there, right? Is
Sorry.
that, yeah, what is your opinion on that?
I do not have a single fidget spinner in my toy of bowl of toys, because a fidget spinner is a toy. Something like the fidget cube is a tool. And that was my very, very, very first video. When I was running my company, fidget spinners were first out. And this video was put on my personal Facebook. I didn't have the ADHD Mama then. And I'm sitting in my car and I'm ranting for 10 minutes trying to explain that this is a tool that I use in the office. And the spinner, you have to use two hands. So therefore, it's a toy and it's distracting other kids and it's distracting yourself. And if it's distracting you from actually taking in the information compared to just distracting and allowing your brain to absorb, there's a difference. So I'm not huge on fidget spinners. I'm sorry for getting distracted on you there. But fidget tools are different.
Got it. Yeah. And so what are some fidget tools that you've seen effective? You got the
I have the cube that I have a black one because often I wear black pants, and so I keep this down at my legs when I'm in an office in a meeting, and no one knows I'm playing with it. For my classroom, I have a couple of the just the, I don't know what to call these ones. They're more the just, you move them, but you don't have to look at them to play with them. That's the difference in my mind. And then my husband, he's an interesting soul. He has a 3D printer, and he printed me one of these. It's just gears, and so I've been playing with this while we talk, by the way.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Awesome. You can't see me playing with the toys, but it's happening.
Awesome. Okay, so one thing that you've learned is people, and especially children, they don't choose it. Nobody chooses it.
No one chooses.
But you know what? When we change the narrative, as the narrative changes, people may choose it. People may want to choose it. I mean, you still can't choose it.
Sorry.
Right? Yeah, sorry.
Not actually a choice.
Yeah, it's not a choice, but it is. But the behaviors, the challenges that parents are facing, just know your kids not being, anything except for themselves, and they can't control themselves at this point. And so finding the solutions out there that are good for them, that help them manage it and help them overcome that, so they can bring out that brilliance is what the goal is here. And,
yes,
and
it
part
is.
of that process is to embrace the ADHD, not stigmatize it, and start to help them understand, hey, you have ADHD. You have something amazing here. All we need to do is get past it. So let's do that together. So what's another thing that you've learned working with your following and building your tribe?
Look beyond the behavior. The behavior is a side effect. There is underlining things happening, and often it's skills are missing. Especially when it comes to your prefrontal cortex. This is where your executive functions live. This is what ADHD is all about. The troubles come from the executive function part of the brain. Executive functions are how you deal with yourself. Forethought, hindsight, internal voice, working memory, all these things affect the way people work, and those are the skills that are missing. The behaviors are results. But people always get hung up on the behavior. Oh, well, they can't sit still, or they can't keep their hands to themselves, or they interrupt. Let's take the interrupt one, for example. If you have a child in a class that is interrupting and always answering and not putting up their hand, that generally means that person is engaged and interested in this topic. So if you start discouraging that, they're going to no longer be excited about this topic. They don't want to talk out. That's going to hurt them in the long run. You have to come up with a system with that child to come up with, well, how can we make sure you don't just blurt out the answers in class? Because that's not fair to other people. But you also have to be fair to the ADHDer. They are not doing that on purpose. And especially if they're enthusiastic about a topic, oh, it's the worst feeling in the world to have a teacher be like, you can't do that. Especially when you're like, but I like this topic. I'm happy to be here. Oh, you're treating me this way. It feels awful.
Yeah. So look beyond the behaviors to what is really happening on the other side.
Yeah.
The engagement, the participation, the creativity, and the brilliance that is trying to emerge. Awesome. And maybe a third.
All right. The good side, seeing the good side of ADHD.
Right.
We've already touched on this with the creativity, but I didn't actually talk about hyperfocus. Now, that's just a term that's kind of thrown out there,
right.
And if you don't have it, it's hard to understand what it is. Hyperfocus is a blessing and a curse, but mainly a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
This is where that unbridled curiosity can just flow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the person who has ADHD does not get to choose what they hyper focus on.
Right.
Now, if you happen to have a job, eventually your ADHD will grow up and hopefully get a job, and hopefully it'll be a job that they're interested in. But when you do find one you're interested in, then you can hyper focus on your job. This is what I do in my case. That I didn't know I liked analytical business analytics so much and doing reporting. You can't get me to write a paragraph. But when it comes to business analytics, it all flows out because I know I can hyperfocus. Now, when it comes to a hyperfocus, if you get disrupted during a hyperfocus, if you disrupt your ADHD, that feels like you're being ripped apart because all of your energy is finally flowing and it feels so good to focus, and then someone pulls that away. They will probably snap at you and be grumpy. And then you're going to be left confused. Why is this ADHD acting up again?
Mm-hmm.
They were finally focusing. Well, they were focusing and you disrupted it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to come up with a system to slowly bring them out of a hyperfocus and then deal with what we call hyperfocus crash. I don't think there's actually a coined term for this yet, but many of us with ADHD have started to talk about this, that once you come out of the hyperfocus, it feels a little yucky. You're grumpy.
Mm-hmm.
You need food. You probably need to go to the bathroom. You haven't in many hours. And you need to be very gentle with yourself, or you need to be gentle with your ADHD, depending if you have ADHD or the person has ADHD that you like and are dealing with.
Yeah. So like a sugar crash, it's a good crash is a good word for it. It sounds like.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
exactly what happens.
How do you manage that? What do you do to manage that? Aside from get to the
I
bathroom and start eating, right? Those are the
I
options.
actually stop a lot of hyperfocus. As a 30-something-year-old woman who has fairly good control over her ADHD at this point, I catch myself before I fall into one,
Mm-hmm.
because I know I'm a mom. I have to go do laundry and cook and work. I know I have to go in different directions, but I actually schedule days at work where I can hyperfocus. This morning was one of those. And I ordered pizza to my office because I knew that I was not going to be able to go drive to get food. I wouldn't want to, because hyperfocus was going to take up all of my energy. So I had prepaid, ordered it online, everything came right to my office door, and I didn't have to think about it, but I knew I was going to eat. Eating after the hyperfocus is good, but also drinking water, taking a couple moments to yourself, being very gentle with yourself. I took a little bit of a walk. I knew if I was grumpy, I would avoid talking to certain people. and I was able to snap myself out of it. So it comes with time and practice, and it gets easier as you get older. So know that, parents, it does get easier as they get older.
Yeah, great. And then you had mentioned something when as we were talking before about trusting your own judgment. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. I've actually never talked about this topic, and I feel it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who had ADHD growing up, I spent all of my time trying to make people like me,
Mm-hmm.
a people pleaser. Teachers, parents, anyone, because of the amount of negative responses I was receiving at every level of human interaction. And I never really understood why I was getting all these negative responses. I now understand why. It's because of the ADHD and they didn't understand. But because of those negative responses, and because I spent so much time trying to be a people pleaser, I did not learn how to trust my own judgment. And I feel this is a skill that ADHDers who are successful have moved and been able to learn this skill. Sorry. Sit back up there. I lost my train of thought. That's what happens with
You're talking
ADHD.
about trusting your own judgment.
You just did a kite. You picked up my lost kite and you brought it back to me. Do you realize that that's actually a tactic to help people with ADHD?
No, no.
So just a cool thing you did. Congratulations.
Okay.
If someone loses their train of thought, it's like you have a kite. The thought is the kite, and the wind whips it out of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And so by retracing the conversation, it can help the person pick up the kite again and keep going. I have a video about that one.
Yeah,
You're going to have to do it again because we got off topic, but
yeah. So, and I've done that a lot with different people. You know, it's like, well, just talk about the topic we're talking about, and that's what. And I think everybody does that to some extent, right? What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. So, losing your train of thought seems to happen a lot with people with ADHD, is what you're saying.
yes.
Got it. And so, regarding trusting your own judgment, tell us about that.
It's such an important skill, especially as your ADHD grows up to be an independent adult. They need to be able to make decisions on their own and not have to rely on other people, because other people have bits and pieces of the information, but they don't have the whole picture for that human.
Right.
So really the only person that can make decisions for yourself is yourself. And that was a very hard learning curve, because I had never had any experience with trusting my own judgment. And that goes right back to elementary school. And I actually remember one instance
Mm-hmm.
where I thought something, a teacher didn't believe me, and I started to question my own judgment.
Mm.
Grade 5, it happened in grade 5. I had clear glue. This is when clear glue first came out. It was like super awesome. And of course, I have ADHD, and I peel the label off. And I see pictures and everything. So the clouds, they always have pictures. If I peel a label and there's some stuck to the container still, it looked like a dragon in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I have quite the imagination.
Mm-hmm.
So the girl sitting behind me stole my glue, borrowed it, and never gave it back. And so I went into her backpack and I found my glue, and I went to the teacher and I said, this person stole my glue. I know it's my glue because this looks like a dragon. Because in my head, that made perfect sense. I peeled off the label that said Laura's glue. Laura, what did you do that for? Instead of the teacher getting mad at the student who stole my property, she got mad at me because I went into her backpack. I had asked all week long for this girl to give me my glue back, and she's like, I don't have your glue. I don't have your glue. And because the teacher didn't believe me, because I was her bad student,
Mm-hmm.
I questioned my ability to have judgments
Mm-hmm.
about my own stuff, about, oh, what do you mean I got in trouble for this? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm telling you there's a problem. You're not listening to me.
Right.
So there's that level of it, or just always making decisions for your ADHDers. It does not encourage them to come up with solutions themselves or to trust their own judgment. You can let your kids fail. It's okay. That's how they learn. That's how everyone learns. People don't learn by being told, don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Of course they're going to do that. I mean, sorry, it's the truth. It's human nature. And people with ADHD often can be slightly more defiant. So
So it sounds like you're saying that the lack of trust, or learning to not trust your judgment, starts at a very early age.
it does.
And that if you can nurture that early on, then they can start to trust it earlier. But as an adult, if you're already there, then you have to learn to trust your own judgment.
Yes.
Awesome.
Therapy, if you're already an adult and you're struggling with this, well, with anything with ADHD, therapy is a wonderful tool, and one that is not talked about enough, that working through your thoughts and feelings can really give you a lot more insight. And then when you have that insight, you can make better decisions going forward. Therapy is fantastic.
Awesome. Now, are you talking about behavioral therapy, cognitive therapy, ADHD coaching, perhaps, that type of thing? Or what kind of therapy specifically have you found works well for you?
I actually haven't done that much. I just had a therapist I talked to. It wasn't more cognitive behavioral therapy. It was just more having someone to talk to. But I have now done more looking into CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and I think it's amazing and fantastic and very healthy to look at your behaviors, your feelings, your physical reactions, and then how those thoughts all go together.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly increases your awareness about what's happening, how you behave, and how those behaviors create the results, and so you can modify those. So that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for this information. This has been amazing. If you are interested, if you're viewing this episode and you're interested in joining the ADHD Mom and seeing some of Laura's amazing videos online, just go to Facebook, type in the ADHD Mama. You'll find her there. Join her tribe, and you can get access to all these videos. I think you'll very much enjoy them. So, Laura, thank you for being part of our group and part of this program, and helping us shine the light on the genius and the brilliance of ADHD when it can be managed and nurtured and brought forth. So,
Thank you very much. I
awesome.
appreciate
Thank
being here.
you. You're welcome. And thank you for watching this episode of the ADHD Toolbox. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care.